Welcome to Step Out and Explore, presented by Amy Luttrell and Debbie Mickey. We are consultants with State Support Team Region 14, part of the Hopewell Center. Our presentation has some dense information on the slides, and we want you to know that it is all important, even though we won't be reading the slides to you. Please feel free to pause the video as needed to ensure you are getting all the information being shared. There are several instances where we ask you to stop and reflect, creating a journal entry, and there will be a final assignment where we ask you to create simple plans to use what you learn from this presentation. Both the journal and the template for the final assignment are saved as Word documents in the Schoology folder for this presentation. You may print them and fill them in by hand, or you may download them to your computer and type into them. The final assignment will be emailed to us by the end of this month. More about that later. Please pause if needed to access these two documents for your later use.
We think that as this pandemic goes on and on, we're seeing less considerate behavior from many around us. I'm sure we all have seen many memes on social media reminding us that we are all in the same storm, but not in the same boat. This is all a plea to have greater empathy, to consider the perspectives of others in our interactions with them. That is the focus of this session. You've watched the two videos on perspectives and empathy. We'll be building on those concepts throughout this session. The tools and much of the information in this presentation come from Jay McTighe's and Harvey Silver's book, Teaching for Deeper Learning, Tools to Engage Students in Meaning Making. We're focusing on Chapter 8, Perspective Taking and Empathizing. We've also added information and ideas from our experiences working with families, especially from Amy Luttrell, Region 14's Family Engagement Consultant.
Understanding different perspectives and having empathy for students and families is very important to the relationships we know make for a supportive educational environment. We're sure these are skills that you hope your students learn as well. There are ways to help students develop these skills, which are important in comprehending all we read and experience.
There are tools to use that will specifically support the development of these skills, and these can be applied in any content area. Your final assignment, as mentioned earlier, will be to create action plans to use what you learn from this presentation in your classroom setting, as well as in interpersonal relationships. There should be about 90 minutes total of viewing and journaling with this presentation, depending on how extensively you record your thoughts. No one but you will see your journal. We added that work to help you intentionally reflect on current ideas and consider new ideas more deeply. We want this session to be a true opportunity to learn and grow professionally. The slides are narrated, but you'll probably want to pause the presentation to make some notes and try an activity or two. The plans that make up the final assignment are simple. There are two very brief tables in the template. It probably won't take you 90 minutes to create them, but there will be thought involved, and you need to make sure these are plans you can and will put into practice. We ask that you email both of us attaching your assignment so there is no chance we'll miss recording that you have completed and submitted these plans. Please put your last name into the title of the document when you save and attach it. You will also need to complete the session evaluation within this course folder in order to receive your certificate. You watched the Liberty Mutual video about how folks' perspectives changed after observing other people, which then changed their future actions. Review your journaled thoughts about this in light of the quote from the McTighe and Silver book on this slide. Everyone needs to be aware of their perspectives in all settings. When folks rush to judgment, we're not intentionally considering other perspectives. This doesn't mean we'll agree with everyone, just that we'll work to understand why they think, speak, and act as they do. The second video you watched was that really cute Sesame Street video about empathy. McTighe and Silver also describe empathy as quoted on this slide. There is a difference between it and perspective taking, but the two work together. There are many people who have experienced life in ways I can only try to understand. I can respect their choice of viewpoints based on their experiences, even if I don't feel the same way. Review your journal entry and compare your thoughts to our author's words. This journal entry will address our first goal. As you reflect in your journal, please take time to deeply consider these questions and record your thoughts. You'll want to pause this video while you do this journaling. Whenever I'm frustrated about a situation with students or families and find myself thinking they just don't care, I started treating that thought as an alarm bell. I can't just teach the content or get through the textbook. I have to teach the student. And if that's not working, if the student isn't learning, I need to find out why. This is where empathy and perspective taking have to enter this relationship. McTighe and Silver list these 5 tools for helping students learn to consider other perspectives and to build their sense of empathy. As we explore these in the coming slides, also consider how you may adapt them to help you build empathy and perspective taking with your students and their families. The first tool is questioning prompts. We usually don't automatically look at events from other people's perspectives or with empathy. This is a habit that has to be developed. Using questioning prompts like the ones here in multiple settings and on multiple occasions can help your students and you build that habit. The second tool is called Put You in the Content. This overall strategy is an overt way to encourage students to build empathy and think through other perspectives. We'll discuss each one separately. The first strategy within the tool Put You in the Content is personal storytelling. The biggest advantage to personal storytelling is that it is so simple. In terms of lesson prep, all you need are some prompts to guide students' thoughts and to help them expand their thinking. The ideas listed in the second bullet point are 3 specific activities that could be adapted to various content areas, even math, since personal reactions and past experiences do color our attitudes towards various subjects. We included the quote in the third bullet point because overcoming the invisible barriers that divide us will require that we purposefully focus on our commonalities with everyone. The second strategy within the tool Put You in the Content is called You Are There. For fun, search You Are There Walter Cronkite videos and watch some of them. They will illustrate how this strategy can help students understand history from other perspectives and probably inspire you to try this strategy. In addition to the historical events in that old TV series, this strategy would also work well for helping students empathize with events in literary works, as well as for encouraging them to consider the perspectives of scientists who made important discoveries. The third and final strategy for the tool Put You in the Content is called Think of a Time. In the McTighe and Silver book, one example used for this strategy was centered around civil rights questions. To use a current example, try asking students to consider their own experiences during our stay-at-home orders. Then think about how an essential worker may have a different experience and very different feelings. Then consider the perspective of a researcher trying to learn about the virus in order to find a vaccine or a treatment. The feelings would be different, the perspectives would be different, even though the basic event, COVID-19, is the same. Thank you for your kind attention and participation so far. As we move on to consider the other tools and concepts we're covering, Amy Luttrell will continue this presentation.
Debbie has led you through the first 2 strategies and tools of perspective taking and empathizing. Let's continue with the last 3 strategies and tools. The next tool is the perspective chart. Take a minute to look at this perspective chart that Debbie created. She made this chart while thinking about our current coronavirus situation. This is a great example of looking at the different perspectives of the topic listed in the center of the chart, online learning during a pandemic. There are 4 very different perspectives: stressed teachers, students with mixed feelings, frustrated parents, and building principals. Now let's look at meeting of the minds and mock trial. Meeting of the minds is a great way to encourage a discussion on different perspectives. A favorite example that I read in the book comes from Charlotte's Web. Frog and Toad meet Charlotte the spider to discuss the qualities of true friendship. Students of all ages would enjoy exploring different perspectives. Mock trial may be very familiar for those of you teaching at the high school level. This slide outlines the steps needed to hold a mock trial. Some tips from the author for conducting effective classroom trials. If students are not familiar with how a mock trial works, have them watch a video like the one shared in number 4 to illustrate the process. This video is too long to embed into our presentation, but you're welcome to pause the presentation and look at it. It's a great example of this strategy. The second tip is make sure all of the students are involved in some way. You can have some students serve as the jury or process observer to take notes and provide feedback, but it is important to make sure that all of the students are involved. A day in the life can be used across multiple content areas and with all ages of students. It really encourages students to use their imaginations. The younger students can draw pictures instead of writing. The responses can be lengthy or short. One example from the author to use with your students is, you have watched the documentary Life in the Trenches about trench warfare during World War I and read the poem In Flanders Fields. Students can then choose one of the following roles: a frightened new arrival, an officer trying to bolster troop morale, or a nurse in a field hospital. Students can then write a letter back home describing their experiences. After students have used this technique a few times, they can be encouraged to create their own day-in-the-life narratives. We have just discussed 5 tools and strategies that will be helpful when making meaning through perspective and empathy. Now we are going to switch gears. Let's look at perspective and empathy as a means to engage families. Please take some time to reflect in your journal about the question on the slide. It is so important to build relationships with the families of your students. When positive relationships are in place, it creates a partnership. This parent and teacher partnership will create caring, educational environments. Joyce Epstein wrote in her book titled School, Family, and Community Partnerships, when students have support from school, home, and community, they are more likely to feel secure and cared for, build positive attitudes and school behaviors, work to achieve their full potential, and stay in school. Here are some tips that may be helpful for gaining perspective and empathy with families. Get to know the family. It makes me feel good when someone is interested in me, my family, and my interests. It makes me feel important. Of course, it is easy to see when someone asks questions, but they don't care about the answers. Be genuine. Be careful not to judge. I once heard a motivational speaker say, "There is a reason why people are the way they are." A few years ago, I heard an instructional coach say the words listen and silent contain the same letters. Wow, I had never thought about that. I have to remind myself that to be a good listener, I must be quiet. Please take the time to reflect on these 3 questions in your journal. You have some new tools and strategies in your toolbox to use next school year, and the journal is a good resource to keep. Now it is your turn to create 2 plans to integrate these tools into your work with students and families. We would like for you to create 2 action plans and email them to us by June 29th. Be creative. We look forward to seeing the many exciting ways you will be using the tools and strategies with your students and families. Don't forget to email your plans to both Amy Luttrell and Debbie Mickey to receive your 3-hour credit. Our email addresses are listed on slide 5. Thank you for joining with us to complete this course. We hope that you have been inspired to use perspective and empathy with your students and families for many years to come and to step out and explore. Reflect one more time in your journal by answering what you would like to continue from the information you have just learned. Please check out the list of additional resources provided within this course, and don't forget to complete the session evaluation.